Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, MTG. For today's video, we're going to take a look at some competitive modern constructed leagues. More specifically, one 5-0 deck list that really caught my eye when I was looking through the decks today. They were announced today, and one of them just kind of stuck out significantly more than all the others. You know, you take a look at some of these lists, you see this is just a basic affinity list here, some basic Eldrazi stuff, some Scapeshift here, kind of a nice innovation here. Core Serve Crewfix in the main for Scapeshift. That's kind of neat. Just your basic burn list. Eventually, you scroll all the way down, and you find a list from someone named FTZZ. So we'll look for his name or her name. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll look for FTZZ. There we go. And you can see this is a Wilderness Reclamation Nexus of Fate deck showing up in a 5-0 list in Modern. It's probable that Wilderness Reclamation might be a bit of a problem. It's definitely not a fun deck to play against in Standard at the least. In Modern, you do have more answers to the enchantment itself, but um, it's very interesting to see a deck that's currently doing quite well in Standard making the jump to Modern and putting up at least the first result of what could be several more to come in the future. This deck revolves entirely around instants and the Wilderness Reclamation. You have Snapcaster Mages to again flashback some of your instants. The main win condition in the deck is a Blue Sun Zenith. Blue Sun Zenith says target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library. So Blue Sun Zenith prevents you from milling out, and it's a way for you to just draw cards in the beginning of the game, or not necessarily in the beginning of the game, but towards the middle part of the game, where you can use Wilderness Reclamation when you have, let's say, I don't know, 7 lands out, something like that. You have 7 lands out, you have your Wilderness Reclamation trigger, you tap all your lands in response, the trigger resolves, you tap them all again, you have 14 mana floating, and then you can use your, where did it go? There it is, Blue Sun Zenith. You can use your Blue Sun Zenith to then draw, I said 14 mana floating, so draw 11 cards with your Blue Sun Zenith. Once you get even later on in the game and you have, let's say, 10 lands, 11 lands out in the field, suddenly this becomes your win condition where you can target your opponent with it. Since its target player draws X cards, you can hit your opponent with it and then have them draw the last, 25, 30 cards out of their library with the Blue Sun Zenith. And so suddenly you have a win condition, which is pretty nice for this deck list. You're seeing a lot of the cards that show up in the Wilderness Reclamation standard deck: 4 copies of Growth Spiral, the 1 Nexus of Fate, and then the 3 Wilderness Reclamations. So I think it's pretty interesting to see. The deck itself is Sultai. It's running a little bit of black for removal as well, mainly blue-green, but some black for 1 Abrupt Decay, 1 Assassin's Trophy, a Devour Flesh, which I think is a pretty sweet inclusion here, 2 Fatal Push, and the flashback on Mystical Teachings as well, which is a pretty big important piece to this deck here for the Modern list as well. Mystical Teachings is a 4-mana instant. Search your library for an instant card or a card with flash, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So what Mystical Teachings is doing here is essentially acting like the Search of Azcanta did in the standard versions of the Wilderness Reclamation decks. The way that, once you're later on in the game and, the Azcanta just finds you your Nexus of Fate over and over again so that you can keep taking these turns. Mystical Teachings does essentially that here, where it can just be tutoring up your Nexus of Fate over and over again, because you can use the Mystical Teachings to find the first Nexus, use the flashback on it to find the second Nexus, and, you're generating this value over and over again where you're, drawing cards for turn, and then, maybe casting an additional draw spell like Hieroglyphic Illumination or something along those lines, maybe casting your Blue Sun Zenith, so that's also something that you can find with your Mystical Teachings. So it's a very key piece to this deck, and I think honestly the deck might not be super playable without it. I think Mystical Teachings might be one of the most powerful cards in this deck. Like obviously Nexus of Fate and Wilderness Reclamation are, quite the combo together, but with Mystical Teachings being able to tutor up these cards for you, and with the flashback on it, it's a very strong card in this specific list. It's an extremely strong card. Also helps you tutor up your one-ofs too, so if your opponents may be playing, Boggles, for example, you can tutor up your Devour Flesh to make them sacrifice their giant Boggle. If they're playing some sort of a combo deck, you can tutor up your Logic Knot to counter whatever it is that they're, trying to play for their combo. So I think this deck list is just pretty sweet. You can see it's just kind of trying to play out all of its lands and then ramp over time. Remand just to kind of, give yourself those extra turns or two, that way you can play your Wilderness Reclamation and start going off from there. Things like Pulse of Marasa lets you gain 6 life against the more aggressive decks, which can be nice. Fatal Push is solid answers to the aggressive decks. So it's a very, very sweet list. I guess you also have something like Creeping Tar Pit and Snapcaster Mage as like your secondary beatdown plan if it comes to that. But I think you're mainly hoping to just win the game with a Blue Sun Zenith. So yeah, this list is pretty sweet. If we look at the sideboard, it's nothing too crazy. You have some additional creatures added in here. 1 copy of Nimble Obstructionist, which again is super sweet, and 1 copy of Tasigur the Golden Fang, as well as additional creatures out of the sideboard. But Tasigur is the only card that you cannot find with the Mystical Teachings. With Mystical Teachings, you can find every other card. You can find the Devour Flesh, you can find the Pulse, you can find the Consume the Meek, Display of Dominance, Fracturing Gust. You can even find the Nimble Obstructionist because Mystical Teachings says find a card that's an instant or has flash, which means you can find the Nimble Obstructionist with it. If you know your opponent's doing some sort of combo deck where they rely on a triggered or activated ability, you can then tutor up the Nimble Obstructionist and then cycle it right away to counter that ability. Find Surgical Extraction, Fatal Push, Rejection, Dispel, Echoing Decay, Life Goes On, and Shadow of Doubt. So the only card it can't find is the Tasigur, your lands, and you can even find Snapcaster Mage has flash too, so you can even find Snapcaster Mage with your Mystical Teachings, which is super cool. So literally the only cards it can't find are the lands, Wilderness Reclamation, and the Tasigur out of the sideboard. So this is a very sweet deck. I want to know your opinions. What do you guys think about Wilderness Reclamation showing up in a modern deck? Do you have any interest in playing this deck if you play the Wilderness Reclamation deck in Standard? Is this kind of the deck that you would want to play in Modern? Take kind of the shell that you already have of the Wilderness Reclamations, the Nexus of Fate, and the where are they? The Growth Spirals, and then put those to work in Modern. I'd be interested to know if that's something you guys are interested in possibly doing in Modern, or if you're thinking that this is just going to be like a one-time thing where this deck showed up 5-0'd once and then is never going to show up again. I think now that it showed up at least once, you're going to see other people trying it, and there's going to be people like myself making videos like this talking about the list, and you're going to see a little bit of a popularity boost here. But will it be a deck that exists, say, 2 to 3 months down the road? That's kind of what I'm interested in here. Do you think that Wilderness Reclamation is a problem? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I have another video coming out later this week that's taking quite a while to do, requires a lot of editing and a lot of render time. So originally that was planned to come out for today, but then I saw this video, or I saw this deck list here when I was scrolling through the deck list, and I knew I had to make a video about that, which is nice because it also gives me a little bit of additional time to edit and render the other video that I'm working on. So definitely stay tuned for that video. It's going to be something I'm sure you guys are going to love. I put a lot of work into the editing for it, and it was a lot of fun to film, so I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What's your thoughts on Wilderness Reclamation and Nexus of Fate showing up in Modern? Do you think the deck's good? Do you think it's a one-time wonder? Be sure to let me know your thoughts. I personally think it'll be kind of a one-time wonder, maybe just kind of like a fringe playable deck. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy, but just the fact that it's playable in Modern, I think, is pretty wild. We saw in the past that one person, or maybe it was even more than one person, actually just took their standard deck on Magic Online into Modern leagues, started 5-0ing with the Saheeli Felidar Guardian combo list, where they were just playing their standard deck against Modern decks and 5-0ing with that, and that was kind of like the big thing that set off Wizards that, okay, maybe Felidar Guardian does need to be banned, maybe we need to ban some portion of this combo. So maybe this is the first of several that come here in the near future that are eventually going to lead to possibly a Wilderness Reclamation ban in Standard. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Be sure to comment all of the other stuff that I told you guys to comment below, because this is a channel where I like to respond to you guys in the comment section and have nice discussions about Magic, so be sure to let me know your thoughts. I'll see you guys here next time. Thank you all so much for watching today's video where we talked about the Modern Wilderness Reclamation deck. At the end of each of my videos, I love to give a huge shout out and thank you to my patrons over on the Patreon page. So a huge shout out and thank you to Jeremy, Rodrigo, Jason, Daniel, Battle of MTG, Down Under MTG, and Jayati Swarn for supporting me on the Patreon page this month. Definitely means a lot, and I appreciate you guys making it all the way to the end of the video.